legal community is saying it is time for the Biden administration to get tough on the smash and grab crime crisis at the federal level. They say the White House has been dragging its heels, leaving it mostly to city and state leaders to fend off thieves and vandals across the nation. Now, some smash and grab perps are stealing millions of dollars of goods from brick and mortar stores, reselling them, and getting away with it. So now the Senate Judiciary Committee Republicans are stepping up, saying they'll come up with a national level solution if the White House won't. They write, given the many cities that are impacted by the crime surge, we believe it'd be even more useful if we could explore these problems on a national scale with the full committee. It's not just Republicans, though, who are desperate for a national solution.
It must be stopped. But it's not just San Francisco. It's in our entire country, and that's evidenced by the appeals that we are receiving from across the country for the legislation.
The Justice Department tells Fox they are looking for federal-level solutions to the crisis, but legal experts say it is far from clear whether they will actually clamp down. Take a listen to the White House.
What our focus is on is making sure that the local leaders, the police officers and departments who know what they need for these communities have the assistance and the funding they need. And that's what we're working around the clock on.
Legal experts tell us the DOJ could bring criminal charges under what is known as RICO. That is short for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Statute. They say the DOJ has already used similar federal statutes to go after parents at school board meetings. So could they and would they do the same thing to crack down on thieves and vandals in city streets? Neil?
Well, Jillian, as you said, if desperate times might call for desperate measures. Jillian Turner following all of that in Washington. Thanks, Jillian. Let's go to Mark Brnovich, the Attorney General from Arizona. How do you handle this, Attorney General? I mean, you think about it. In California, they're blaming the retailers. In Chicago, they're blaming some stores that aren't doing enough. There's got to be a simpler way to focus on this problem. What would it be?
Well, Neil, thank you for having me on, and I can't help but think what Billy Shakespeare once wrote, that the fault, dear Brutus, lies not in the stars, but within ourselves. The problem is in states like California, in fact, most of the states in the country, they've increased the threshold of crimes property crimes they will prosecute. The far left has undermined the importance of property rights in our society, and as a result of enabling criminal organizations and criminals to steal stuff, and if there's no penalties, when you incentivize and decriminalize something, you get more of it. And whether it's the crisis at our border or whether it's organized retail theft, this is what the left has done to our cities. And so the answer is absolutely not more federal money or more federal prosecutions. The answer is holding local district attorneys, holding legislators accountable, holding governors accountable that have enabled the mob, that have enabled looting, and prosecutors that won't prosecute real crimes.
You know, but sometimes it is the money, isn't it, though? I mean, if you're cutting back on police funding, and fortunately, a lot of that movement eased up a little bit, and that's a welcoming development, but it is still given the police pause in some of these communities where crime is the most rampant. I mean, think about it, they're just a cell phone shot away from being exposed or something that could end a career or worse. How do you deal with that?
Well, Neil, I was a gang prosecutor. I first started, and I was a federal prosecutor, and so I have worked with law enforcement at all levels, and I've never seen them this demoralized in so many places. And whether it's the unconstitutional vaccine mandates, or it's lack of resources, or it's public officials undermining law enforcement, it's a very, very difficult job. You never know when you're going to return home to your families. And so when you have communities like Chicago, Cook County, San Francisco, these large cities run by leftist mayors, Democratic mayors that don't care about public safety, that demonize law enforcement officers, that will not allow prosecutors to prosecute crimes, the end result is you get more criminal activity. And this is nothing new or novel. We saw this in New York City when, James Q. Wilson and the broken windows theory was something that helped crack down on crime. And so the reality is, once again, if you allow some lawlessness, you're going to get more and more lawlessness, and then you end up with violence. And so, there was a time when tourists in San Francisco had to worry about, getting maybe pickpocketed at the mall. But now the entire mall is being knocked over by organized criminal gangs.
Do you think if you got rid of this feature where you're going to steal up to $1,000 or $2,000 worth of goods and not have to worry about being apprehended, if that were to stop, like tomorrow, what do you think would happen?
I think that's a big part of the problem, Neil, is a majority of states have increased the threshold on what constitutes a property crime. You see more and more people stealing that. So you end up with more pickpockets, more retail theft, and when you have less prosecutions. And so that is definitely a problem. That's a big part of the problem. And also, it's this fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of property rights. When people are ripping off the department stores, that means lost jobs. It means lost productivity. It means higher prices for all consumers. And so one of the biggest problems facing our country is not only the disruption in the supply chain, it's in the fact that prices are rising as a result of not only the Biden administration's policies, but as a result of crime and these criminal gangs that are essentially stealing and then reselling it, in markets, at different third-party markets. And in fact, if anything, we need to start looking at what I call the fences. And that's these platforms like Amazon that are allowing these people to sell their stolen goods online.
Yeah, bears watching, as you say. Mark Brnovich, the Attorney General from the state of Arizona. The Dow Jones Industrial is up about 97 across the board for the market averages. We'll see after this.